Welcome to the Calvary Leadership Podcast, where we equip leaders within Calvary Church with the tools to lead well and continue growing in their calling. Whether you're leading in ministry in the workplace or at home, this podcast is designed to encourage, challenge, and strengthen you as a leader. In each episode, we'll dive into practical leadership insights, biblical wisdom, and real conversations to help you lead with excellence. Let's get started. Welcome, everyone, to our monthly Calvary Leaders podcast. We are so blessed to have with us today Pastor John Nuzzo from Victory Family Church up in Cranberry. Oh, well, you have more than one location now. You're at Cranberry.
Yes.
Is it Zeleenople?
No, Meadville and Newcastle.
Newcastle. There you go. That's awesome. So cool. Newcastle, my dad pastored up there when I was little. So wonderful
Wow.
area. Wonderful area. So blessed to have you with us. You have been such a model and example across the Pittsburgh region in ministry and churches of all sizes. And thank you for all that you do for other pastors. And you do a lot. And the conferences you host and different investments you make to each of us. So thank you for that. And thank you for being part of this.
It's a pleasure.
Time.
It's a pleasure. That just means I'm old, but that's okay.
You're not that old. So
You're kind.
Thank you for taking the time. So today what we're talking about is how do you speak the truth with honor? And this is such an interesting topic because churches historically kind of hit one of two spectrums or ends of the spectrum on this. Either we're really good at speaking the truth and it's just harsh, or we fall on the side of, we wouldn't say honor probably, but pleasing, trying to be people pleasing. And then we don't say the truth. We kind of shrug the truth, and both can have its, of course, negatives. And so kind of right out of the gate, when we talk about speaking the truth with honor, is speaking the truth with honor, is that approach, is that a leadership style, or is that a principle that's really transferable to any context? Like, is that just like how a person's wired? You know, some people are like, I just tell the truth, tell it the way it is. You know, is that just a leadership style thing, or is that really a transferable principle?
Well, I would say it's obviously a transferable principle because Jesus said the scripture said he was full of grace and full of truth. For years, I used to think, well, it's 50-50, but it really isn't. It's 100% truth, 100% grace. And so to be untruthful is to actually lie to somebody. And so when I'm not able to be honest and forthcoming in a marriage, a relationship, within the church itself, which is what we're focusing on, I'm actually lying to you. If I know something to be true and I'm more intimidated to share with you my perspective, if I do it with grace, I'm presuming that we don't pick one or the other. If I'm willing to do that, to withhold the truth from you, then by omission, I've actually lied to you.
Yeah.
And so we can't help people if we don't tell them the truth. And so it's like going to a doctor and there's a bump on your back and he doesn't want to tell you that there's a bump on your back. You can't quite see it, but I don't want to hurt his feelings. And so you leave with a bump on your back that could be very harmful.
That's good. That's really good. You've been in pastoral ministry a long time, and you get this. I'm a pastor's kid, been around my whole life, all 30 plus 13 years. Sorry. The hurdle in ministry oftentimes is we don't want to hurt people's feelings.
Yes.
If we say the wrong things or do the wrong things, there's like this big reaction, this backlash. And we don't want to lose people. We don't want to lose givers or whatever you want to put in that box.
Yeah.
How can leaders deal with the fear of backlash or rejection while still sharing hard truths?
What I found through the years in my early days, I fell on the side of lying to people.
Yeah.
If you would have asked me, Pastor Nick, at the time, are you lying, John? I would have said, oh, no. I didn't know I was lying. I thought that protecting somebody's feelings was more important than communicating truth. And so what I learned to do early on was I'd skirt around things, and I'd tell you, in fact, I became what what I think would be clinically called today codependent,
Mm.
where people would come to me and they would ask even crazy questions like, "Hey, can our church do X?" And they'd fill in the blank. It could be, I mean, something
Yeah,
outrageous.
yeah, yeah,
Instead of me just saying, that's really not something we're ever going to do, I would say, we'll pray about it. I had no intention of praying about it.
yeah,
And so I actually lied to the person. Then the person would be able then to leave that discussion, now be able to put their ability to hear God on the line by our discussion. And so they're presuming since they spoke to me, they heard from God. I have to come back now and tell them they didn't, instead of just being honest. And so what I found what I was actually doing was harming people because it's one thing for me to say, for example, this was years ago. This isn't so prominent in church circles today, but there was a time when Christians in America, particularly some mainly white guys and ladies, would dance like they were Jewish,
hmm
and they would put on clothes like they were in a play, and again, if people were into that, praise God.
yeah,
And so they would come to me and say, "Well, I have a ministry of like," and it was some I had to become. Are you messianic? And we're going to come and do messianic dancing or whatever. And God's called us to do that. Well, uh, having a heart for evangelism and desiring to reach Catholic people, which is mainly who's in Pittsburgh,
you bet,
I thought, it is crazy enough without that, how to communicate the gospel.
you bet.
And so instead of me just saying, "Hey, listen, that's something we would never do here. Let me explain to you why. I hope you can understand, but if not, I really want to be honest with you and tell you why." Now, I wish I'd have done that in the early days. So I have a responsibility as a leader and as a friend and as a spouse or a brother or whomever to care more about you than I do me. And so what I learned to do early on was to deceive myself to think I was caring about you by telling you what I think you needed to hear. So at the moment, you would feel good about our conversation. And I would then leave you with a false expectation. And it wasn't your fault, it was mine. So now this person maybe has a week or two waiting for me to hear from God. And I'm not praying about this. We're never going to do this
Yeah, yeah,
dance in the middle. It ain't going to happen,
yep,
right? So now I have to tell them, not that we're not doing it in the reason. I just have to tell them they can't hear from God.
mm,
And I hurt them by doing that.
yeah,
Now, what I've learned to do since is, and this happens all the time, as I'm sure it does for you and people within your leadership structure. People will come to me every weekend. I hang out by our fountain area where we have a baptistry, and I greet people in both of our Sunday morning services till they leave. And I'll stay until there's no one there. Invariably, every week, somebody's coming to me telling me something I need to do. What I think our church needs to do, or what you need to do. And early on, again, I would be having all these conversations out there that were being balanced with untruth. Where now what I simply say to them, I've probably been prophesied to that we're going to start a Christian school at least 50 times.
mm,
And so I feel like the Lord told me to tell you to start a Christian school. I go, well, I don't think he did. I think he may be leading you to do it. Because if he put it in your heart, you should do it. Oh, I can't do it. I said, oh, me either. I said, I'm not called to do that. I certainly value Christian education, but that's not my calling. But there are some great Christian schools in the area, and I'd be happy to connect you with some of them or whatever. Um, and when I've learned then to be truthful, I've learned to do something that I think every leader should do is by being honest, you can split your church every week. Here's what I mean by that.
yeah,
I let you know what we are and what we aren't. And I don't let you develop a false expectation because I'm not clear with you. I think it's Dave Ramsey that says to be unclear is to be unkind. And so when you come to Victory, this is who we are. This is the focus of our ministry. These are the values that we have. and we primarily stay within that window.
Hmm.
Um, and so I'm not praying about uh, to start a new ministry here or a new ministry there. I'm happy to help you, to encourage you to go do it. But I often find people just coming and giving me work that I'm not called to do.
Yeah.
So, so jokingly, I'll say, look, the only person that can give me jobs is my wife and Jesus, you know? So, so 90 to 99 times out of 100, the person's reasonable and they may not come back, which is appropriate.
Hmm.
Because I say you don't, you should find a place that really is in your heart, that's their mission. And I've actually referred to the churches that were more focused in those areas. And uh, but other than very unreasonable people, which you can't do much about, uh, I've learned that just being kind and honest and forthright, uh, and I'm not telling you you're wrong.
Hmm.
I'm just telling you from where I am at right now in my relationship with God in leading this church, that this is what I believe to tell you that is the truth. And I don't want to mislead you. And very
There's a
few
big
people
there's a
push
big
back.
there's a big pressure in that, and I know I've experienced this, and leaders can experience this on their teams of and I think it's a abundance for scarcity mindset. If I
Yeah.
lose you, if I lose this family, if I lose this leader, if I lose this
Yeah.
person serving, I'm in deep trouble. Like
Yes.
I it's a scarcity mindset of once they're gone, no one will
Yeah.
ever fill their spot again,
Right.
which isn't true. But
Correct.
that fear causes us to, we wouldn't say this, but would cause us to lie.
Yes.
And then down the road, disappoint them even worse than we would have in the moment. Because
Exactly.
now they have this hope and expectation that we are going to dash
Yeah.
and, you know, that's a poor leadership. I understand the intent is good, but the practice is disastrous
Yes.
over the long run. Um, when we're talking about speaking the truth with honor, like having hard conversations with people, we have someone on our team that just needs some good feedback. Maybe they
Yep.
need to tweak something that they're doing, how they interact with parents, or how they lead a song, or how well they keep up with the live stream, or whatever it may be. So when we're speaking the truth with honor, what role does active listening play in fostering that healthy environment where the truth is spoken, but it's done in an honorable way? Does that make sense?
Yes. I found that asking questions is almost as or more important sometimes than giving information
Hmm.
because it doesn't always land. And so let me maybe put it in this context, Pastor, which might help
Yeah.
people. When I serve the people in my staff, and these aren't the people on my lead team, and our
Mhm.
staff is pretty large.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of a young man right now, wonderful young man. Uh, it came to my attention that his people skills were low. Um, and it wasn't, he didn't do anything horrible. It
Hmm.
wasn't, in fact, there was nothing egregious that he did. But long story short, and I just kind of want to be vague just for the sake of,
Yeah.
uh,
Understandable.
so, so I said, hey, I want to meet with you. And so he comes in to sit down and talk to me. And there's nothing I have to verify. He didn't do anything wrong. And I've been around the young man, and I could see that his people skills were secondary to his performance.
Hmm.
So he wanted to achieve something through a group of people more than caring and sharing and delving into the lives of those people. So inadvertently, it appears that he has a leadership that uses people rather than builds them. But that's not his heart.
Yeah.
I know the young man. So I sat down with him and I said that to him. I said, I know you. I know this isn't who you are, but this is how you come across. Let's talk about how you can maybe process the why behind these behaviors, not the what. All of us do things that we have to improve and grow in because we live in flesh and blood bodies.
Hmm.
But If you hear me saying that I'm critical of you and that you need to change to be loved and accepted, then you're not hearing me correctly. I want to help you to be able to fulfill the mission of your life. I want to help you to be effective with people because that's our job, that's our call. And so I ask him very directly, does it mean more to you that X, Y, and Z, and I named his function,
Mm-hmm.
happens to the level you know it should, or the people that you do it with that are serving at our church? And he was very honest. He said, well, I guess I am more focused on the outcome. I said, okay. I said, so, but why? I don't know. And Pastor, one of the things I've learned in talking to people about real issues is I don't center on what they need to change. I don't, I said, I'm not asking you to change. I'm asking you to find out why that behavior is there.
Mm. It's really good.
If you, and I have asked the why question 1,000 times in 30 years. Now, I'm not exaggerating. Not one person in 30 years has told me why. Well, this is the real reason of why I do that. So now all I did, if I gave them information without pastoring them and serving them, in fact, that's the language I use. I said, I want to serve you right now. I want to pour my heart into you and serve you the best I can. I may be wrong on some of these things. I may not be 100% accurate, but for the most part, this is going to be on the money. And I want to serve you right now. Even when I've dealt with people that are in horrific, let's just say, relational issues because of bad choices and sinful choices, when I'm meeting with them for the first time, instead of me lording that over them, I start with the couple, no matter which one was, let's just say, adultery.
Yeah.
I'll say, my intent today is to serve you as a couple and to pour my life into you and to be able to help you in this the best I can. And so in this young man's case, in fact, we're meeting tomorrow again,
Mm.
and it'll be 20 minutes, and I can see him improving, not because he's trying to get better to please me or to fit or to be accepted in the team and in the group, but because he genuinely is starting to understand the why. And we talked about some of that. And then I asked this very penetrating question that I would ask any leader to ask in those environments, particularly when the person is open and free with you. And because I'm the authority in this situation, particularly this guy's younger and, in our organization, he's much further down the organization. I would have felt like I had, we're getting sick to have to go and meet with my pastor. Oh God, Jesus, help me. What did I do? And then it's something that I need to amend or whatever. I'd be like, oh God, help me. But I said, did you feel uncomfortable talking to me today? He went, well, no. I said, why? And he began, I said, I'll tell you why. Because it wasn't your responsibility to do that. It was mine.
Hmm.
Do you believe that our conversation is in your interest or in mine? He goes, oh no, I know you're talking to help me. I said, then we're good. I said, but if you leave here thinking, I've got to jump through 3 hoops or I'm not on his good list, you're on my good list, period. I
Yeah.
love you, and that's why we're talking.
Yeah.
And so when he comes tomorrow, there'll be no apprehension, but that's the leader's job,
It's really good.
is to break down those walls.
So you're talking about kind of an approach of to speak the truth with honor, okay? You could approach it with like a list, like, "Hey, I'm checking the box. I said the truth. Oh, now I'm going to honor." You know the whole Oreo principle. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah, yeah,
I'm gonna share something that's nice about you. Then I'm gonna give you the hard truth, and then I'm gonna show you
yeah,
something that I really appreciate about you. Sandwich the
yeah,
two, and we're good to go. What you're saying is, rather than checking boxes, in a sense, it's your heart and your intent. And if
yeah,
your heart and your intent is to serve, to care for them, it comes out
yeah,
differently.
yeah. Yes,
Ultimately.
yeah.
Yeah,
It's that intentionality uh, through the years as a pastor. People, uh, you make a lot of mistakes and wish you could have done things
for
better
sure.
with people. But there have been many things that have been terribly unfair through the years. that people do to you when you lead. It's
You
just
bet.
life.
Yep.
And I had a staff member ask me one time because they knew genuinely what occurred with some individual. And every time they would come up in conversation, I would speak of them well. And finally they pulled me aside and said, "Look, I know what that person did. I know what they're doing right now. Why do you speak about them in a way that it's like, and I know that you want to help them right now." I said, "Well, I can't because they've set a boundary, not me. But here's how I do it. I actually care about them."
Hmm.
And spiritual maturity isn't defined by how much spiritual gifts I flow in or what I can quote in scripture. Maturity is defined by who you take care of.
Hmm.
Babies, children, teenagers take care of no one. The older you get, and you start to, if you get married, you no longer get to care just for yourself. If you have one child, that's changed drastically. You get two, three, four, or five, your life's over. You never start a sentence with me
Yeah.
once you have kids, right?
Yep.
Certainly not in your soul. They're always in your heart.
I have 4 kids.
There you
Don't,
go.
don't, yeah,
Yeah, so your life's gone. I mean,
for
you
sure.
you don't get to think about you.
Yeah.
So the reality of it is do I really care about you? What's my motive for talking to you? That's me and God.
Hmm.
And when I was younger, my motive was an outcome, just like this young man. And I think a lot of that has to do with just immaturity,
Hmm.
ego. I want everything to be great because if it isn't, then I look bad. And my motive was not so much centered on them. The older I've gotten, and I'm 64 now, uh, what matters to me most is the individual. When I
Hmm.
was younger, the amount of people that we were reaching mattered more to me. And it went from growing a church with this kind of opaque, just vast group of people to truly, genuinely caring about an individual. And then everything I say is put in that context.
Oh man.
And so, and it's made such a difference. And I wish I could have had that when I was younger, but that's one of the reasons that I accept interviews like this is
Yeah.
because I'd like to get people there a little faster,
Yeah.
further, without a lot
And
of the
it's such a
carnage.
blessing. Follow up to that. So you're talking about your interaction with another person, how does that shape the culture of the bigger team? Like when they
Yes.
see that, when they see that you're speaking well of that person, when they see that, hey, you had the hard conversation, but did it in a caring, loving, honoring way. How does that affect the culture of the team as a whole?
Is I say to our team, and let me put you in our lead team room,
Hmm.
and they're basically what you would consider running all the departments of our
Yeah.
church. Is I want them to understand that I want you to treat people the way I treat people. If you treat our receptionist differently than you do somebody you need, then you really don't care about the person, you care about the outcome. And so my desire to be honest with you, and it could come across that I'm being self-deprecating if you don't know the context.
Yeah.
But I'm just telling the truth that when I open my heart to them and I'm bringing up something in the lead team room, which I'll be doing on Thursday this week, and there's an area that I really want to address with the team. The culture becomes that if we genuinely care about each other and and we don't get to be immature, we don't get to live in resentment and unforgiveness and be touchy, fretful, resentful, pay attention to the evil done to us or suffered wrong, which I think that's in the Bible, First
Mhm.
Corinthians
Yeah.
13,
Yeah.
is that if we're going to love people, this is how it translates. And so I actually emailed you a document that I'll refer to now,
Yeah.
and it's our it's called our honesty policy.
Oh wow.
And and in our lead team, it's just a paragraph, and then everybody signs it. And here's all it says: I promise to speak the truth in love. I will not gossip. If I have a problem with someone, I'll go to them personally and promptly, so that we might be reconciled to each other and maintain unity in accordance with Matthew 18:15. I will speak the whole truth to others, even to the last 10%, knowing that the last 10% makes the biggest difference. So how we define that in the culture of our lead team, and this
Really
is
good.
throughout our organization, is if you have to have a meeting after the meeting, you didn't do this. And if you're having to say something in that room because it's a mutual accountability in this
Yeah.
space for us.
Yeah.
If you don't speak the truth, then after the meeting, have to have a meeting because I didn't want to say this, and or come to me and go, I didn't want to say this in the meeting, but I really think so and so needs to know whatever. So why didn't you care enough about them to do what we promised we would do for each other? Because Pastor, the last 10% is the hardest.
It is.
And that's the part to where we've made a commitment to one another that I want to bring value to you, not correction. In fact, in our executive team meeting today, I said there's a difference between being critical and being accountable. If I want to bring to you value to help you be accountable to what makes you better for the kingdom and yourself, that's a godly value. Being critical isn't.
Mm-mm.
And so anybody can find fault, right? I mean, it doesn't take a genius to tear down a building. It takes a genius maybe to build one.
Yeah.
And I can't do it, but somebody can. And so this policy is actually a reflection of a commitment that we make. And we all sign off on it. So this is maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 months back. I was saying something to one of our campus pastors, and I could just see it in his eyes a little bit that somehow that like he was drawing some conclusions by it. Before the meeting's over, I called him by name. I said, let me ask you a question. Do you think I'm okay with you right now? And he hesitated. I went, well, I said, do you think you have to change what we just talked about and get better at this overnight in order for you to feel like this room will honor you and respect you? Well, kind of. I said, well, do you think you're in this room because you're perfect? Well, no. Do you think I will ever think you're perfect? No. I said, will you ever think I'm perfect? No. So this is the honesty policy.
Yeah.
So I love you and I believe in you. The only way we can serve each other. And by the way, they give me honesty. In fact, I
Sure.
think they're more comfortable giving it to me than each other.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. But I've invited it. And you have to model that. And
Well,
so,
when you
yeah,
model that, though, doesn't it open the door for everyone else to follow suit? Like, as the leader, whether you're a lead pastor, whether you're leading a ministry team, when you're in charge, when you're in the lead seat, whatever team or church or organization, when you lead the way and do that, you unlock the door and invite others to do the same.
yeah. And it takes the question I would ask of me is at the end of these meetings in my relationship with the people that I serve, that if they were going to be 100% honest and you ask them, does John care more about you or himself? And if they can't innately say, I know he cares more about me than himself
Hmm.
because of the way I live my life. And when there are things that go wrong, as they do with people weaponize that,
Yeah.
right? I've been waiting all this time. I can't tell you the truth, but I can pound you now and get you, in another path instead of serving the person at their weakest.
Mm.
Um, a spiritual father in my life, it meant this. He said this all the time. He said, a spiritual man or woman is actually marked by how they treat people that can do nothing for them and that have fallen and failed.
Mm.
And he told the story in Galatians. He said it's a long story, so I won't take our time with it. But God really dealt with him. Is he was in a group of ministers and they were talking about another minister. He said, I didn't say a word, but I'd given it my tacit approval. I went to go to pray that night, and literally the presence of God fell in the room. And I heard like you'd hear a man speak, who are you that judges another man's servant? And he said, I didn't, Lord, I didn't judge him. 3 times that happened. And he said, and as clearly as if someone was in the room with him, he said, I'm able to make him stand. And this minister had been divorced. This is in the
Mm-hmm.
late
Yeah.
50s. So that was like
Big
where there
deal.
was no recourse, you know. And and so he said, well, Lord, why aren't more people being restored in our movement then? He said, because none of you are spiritual. And he said, and in Galatians it came to his heart, you that are spiritual, restore such a one. He
Wow.
said, the reason you people, your team, your group doesn't restore people is none of you are spiritual. Yeah, you know the gifts of this and the flow in this, but you don't restore people in a spirit of meekness. And being raised under that man made me always mindful that a truly spiritual person is when they are defenseless. And when they leave you, even though you may have consequences, I've had to terminate people
Yeah.
because of certain
Yeah.
things.
You bet.
They're defenseless, but they feel defended as a person. The consequences I can't stop necessarily,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't have to discard the person. And if we don't discard the person, we have the power to, through the love of God through us, to create an open door for their tomorrow.
So good.
And yeah, and it to me, it's the essence of shepherding people.
Love that. I love that. Well, Pastor John, I don't want to take too much of your time. You've been, man, what, like a lot of gold right here. Um, do you have any final thoughts on just speaking the truth with honor? Last little tidbit, last 10%.
Yeah, the last 10% would be this. No one in your church, no one in your circle of relationships is perfect. No one. When you ask for perfection, you're asking to be offended.
Mm,
When you ask to always be fully understood without communication, you're asking for the impossible. And I would ask all of us to ask ourselves one question. Why do I do what I do? Not what am I doing? Not what am I expecting? Why am I expecting it? Why do I impose on my church everything from, I didn't like that worship, and they want to have a conversation with me?
yeah.
Now, I guess I would leave you with this. I'm very honest though. When people come to me and they're mature believers, they tell me they are. I just want you to know the worship today, and I don't like that one song. I say it as sweet as I know how. I go, listen, I never want to lie to you, but I give you my word before God. I will never care if you're happy. Jesus didn't die to make you happy, neither am I.
Mm,
I don't care if you like the worship. I don't care if you like the song. I don't care if you like the color of the room. By the way, we do a lot of songs I don't like.
mm-hmm.
But here's the reality. When you ask me those questions, you're telling me what you value.
Yeah.
And those are not the things that Jesus died for.
No.
You come to me and talk to me about something that matters to the heart of God. Man, we'll talk all day. But you want to talk to me about a song? I said, I'd rather dig ditches.
Hmm.
I said, so if you need to go to a church where the pastor's going to care about very insignificant things that Jesus would say, that's stupid. Don't even talk about that. Then you need to find a place where they're going to care, because I don't want to lie to you. I'll never care if you're happy. I'll care if you're loved, treated well, that God's word is being done in your life. We're helping you and that's God. But this other nonsense, no.
Hmm.
And so those people don't necessarily always want to come back. But I'll go back to that decision. You split your church every week that way.
You bet.
You give them the yes and no up front.
You bring
And
clarity.
yes, and for your team, what are you expecting that God would never, never, ever expect you to expect? What are you imposing on others because of your own issues, your own insecurities, your own church hurt, whatever, fill in the blank, that God himself would say, listen, let me deal with you so that I can use you to serve others.
Hmm.
Because what it ultimately makes an individual is very self-focused, very self-centered. And being selfish is the antithesis of loving people.
For sure.
And so accept the imperfections of yourself and others and love each other. Love one another
Hmm.
and trust God for his grace that is his power made known in human weakness.
Amen.
And so that would be my encouragement for
So
everybody.
good. That's so good. Thank you so much for investing in us. Man, what a blessing this is. Thanks for making us better. And, just like you said, helping us go further faster. That means the world. And I don't know I don't think we've ever met in person. Maybe anyway, I appreciate that you are investing in me and in leaders that you have never met. And that means so much.
Oh, it's a great, great privilege. And I mean that with utter sincerity.
Yeah.
It's my honor, really.
I hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Thank you to everyone else that joined us today for our monthly podcast interview. We're so blessed to have with us Pastor John Nuzzo from Victory Family Church. Have a great week, everyone. Thanks for joining us for this episode of the Calvary Leadership Podcast. We hope today's conversation has encouraged and equipped you to lead well right where you are. If you found this episode helpful, be sure to subscribe and share it with your team or another fellow leader. Keep leading with purpose, and we'll see you next time on the Calvary Leadership Podcast.